Hey Reginald, just caught your video on EMP, and I thought I'd add a little something to it because there was, I believe, something really missing in the equation that you described. Um, with an EMP, if one of these things popped off, like above us or above you or whatever, first thing, of course, you'd notice is that the lights would go out, right? And then those of us who are aware of the possibilities of EMP, um, most of us would probably pick up our cell phone and check and make sure it comes on, right? Well, for example, like about 2 weeks ago, I had a power failure here, and my eyes opened up, and it was totally dark and quiet in my room, and I went, "Whoa!" And the first thing I did was reach over on the nightstand and grab my cell phone, and it came on, and I went, "Whew!" Well, the first thing, of course, you would notice is that the lights would go out. Second thing you'd notice is that probably your cell phone doesn't work. And then things would be quiet for maybe a minute or two, and then you'd start hearing the explosions. Um, all of that tonnage, thousands of tons of commercial aviation that's like hanging in space above your head right now, um, would no longer be functioning up there. All the electronics would be toast, and all of the flyby electronics controls that they have would be just completely useless. And they would have a lot of highly explosive diesel on their well, aviation fluid um, in their tanks, and when it hits, of course, all of that fuel vaporizes, and then you have a mushroom cloud, which is non-nuclear, but it's bad enough. So then, um, the second thing, of course, you'd notice is the explosions, and then you would, if you weren't really close to a plane crash, you would then be in a situation where you'd have to quite possibly run for your life because the whole city and the whole neighborhood that you might be in might just end up in a firestorm. Basically, when things get so hot, just the radiant heat from another bunches of houses burning is enough to start lighting off dead leaves and trees and whatnot. And then pretty soon another house goes up, and then a wind blows, and it fans the flames, and then it's something like what you normally only see in California, only it would be right in the middle of your neighborhood. So your preparations to get out of Dodge with your bug out bag and all of your mobile supplies, so you could just, and of course you've got a vehicle now too, well, maybe not. But anyway, you still have that bug out bag, and you could still be mobile. So you could grab a few things and maybe get out of the area, hopefully being able to outrun the flames before and not run into another firestorm as you were heading somewhere that wasn't on fire. So basically, in a situation like an EMP, I would have my Dodge pickup. It's a 1996, and it has an inline six-cylinder um, Cummins B-Series diesel engine. The only electronics in it, in fact, there's no electronics in it. The only electrical thing on the engine is a little wire, two little wires going to the fuel shutoff solenoid, and that's it. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. The fueling of the engine is determined by little weights that fly around, that spin around in a circle and fly out, and springs holding it back, and that's how the idle and the top idle speed are set. I'd lose my anti-lock brakes, my electronic compass, the radio, of course, possibly the voltage regulator, but that's a pretty robust circuit, so I might not lose that. So my battery would probably still charge. But even with that awesome bug out vehicle, all of my preps and guns and ammo and everything, I quite possibly might not make it out of town because there's a pretty big airport not too far away, actually a couple of them, several, and planes coming out of the sky and crashing. Well, then the firestorm takes off, and then, oh, the fire people will save us. Not, because I've worked on fire trucks before. I'm a diesel mechanic. They're all electronic now. So basically, all that multi-million-dollar fire equipment would be sitting in the fire station, and they would be cranking on it and cranking on it, not understanding, probably because they're not mechanics, that it's pointless. And they eventually might try dragging hoses out, throwing them over their shoulders, and walking to the flames, but they would just be, they would make, they'd disappear like a fart in a hurricane. They just would not make any difference at all. So basically, in that situation, my preps are to look around, see if I see any flames. If I don't, I mean, I'm sure I'll hear the explosions. Then I'll just grab buckets of wheat and start throwing them in the back of my truck, and open up my Faraday cage, pull out my spare GPS unit, because my cell phone would be trashed, of course, and then head for my bug out location. And I have family way out in the sticks. Now, it's quite possible that a plane could hit there too. Um, so I would then have to head to my secondary bug out location. But a lot of people would die real quick in an EMP because of all of the plane crashes and the massive firestorms. And in the winter time, if it occurred in the winter, the fire wouldn't be as bad. But as soon as the power goes out, everybody with electric heat, they're not prepared for that. They don't have the clothes for it. They don't have a way to heat their house. They don't have anything, and they would probably die. They'd be dropping like flies. And if anybody and those people who managed to survive the flames would probably do it. A lot of them would probably do it by abandoning their homes, and they would have nothing but their shirt on their back. And then in that situation, they would just be 2 or 3 days max away from dying. Then, of course, the people whose houses wouldn't burn or didn't burn, and a lot of those people would be in trouble as soon as the municipal water shut off. In all these buildings that collapsed, of course, the water pipes would break, so all of that water would just be blasting everywhere until it was the municipal reservoirs were, all the tanks and the elevated tanks are empty. So basically, you'd be in a situation where there'd be no water, no municipal water, and then people would start dying from all kinds of diseases due to drinking contaminated water. And those are the people who don't understand or don't know that you can use Clorox bleach to purify your water, right? And they would die. They would die by the millions, and they would die probably 30 feet away from them would be a perfectly good bottle of Clorox bleach that could have saved their lives if they put some in the water before they drank it. So basically, I have an emergency folder, and it basically, I have maps to my bug out locations, 3 different routes off highways, and I have information on water purification and other prep items. I also have plans in the FEMA PDF for building wood gas stove or wood gas generators, so that you could like run a car or a tractor or something off of wood chips, and that would be needed eventually. But if there was an EMP situation, of course, my database would be wiped out, but what I have printed out, of course, would be okay. So basically, if I manage to get out of the city, dodging the burning neighborhoods along the way, and trying to avoid like police officers jumping in front of me to confiscate my truck, because if I let them have my truck, I would die, basically. So it would be something I'd really have to do some soul searching on before that event occurs. Uh, Knock on particle board. um, But basically, then if I managed to get to my bug out location, hopefully it wouldn't have burned down as well. Um, but if it did burn down, if I could just find some place that wasn't on fire, I could, just with what I load on my truck, I could I could probably live pretty close to a year. So, and then of course I've got all the other stuff. I got a pellet gun amongst other things, but so I could hunt quietly if I had to. But if there was anything to hunt, I might even eventually be reduced to digging up earthworms or something. But in any case, the death toll of an EMP would be a lot more immediate than most preppers seem to think. The planes falling out of the sky, of course. Uh, Most preppers think that it would that an EMP would be a long, drawn-out, starved to death situation, but man, it would begin with terror and violence and burning and craziness right away. I mean, you wouldn't have to wait 2 days for the panic to set in with people because the burning neighborhoods would cause the panic like right now. So um, I don't know why people don't add that into the EMP equation, but I think it's extremely important. Um, so, guess that's about it. Later.